What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with another episode of the fantabulous Hardwood Knocks podcast. I will not be joined by Grant Hughes again this time, but I will once again be speaking with Morten Stig Jensen. He covers the NBA for Yahoo Sports, Forbes, as well as the NBA podcast. Go check them out. We did a bunch of home and homes this week. This conversation was his idea, and it ended up taking us in some interesting places. We covered the Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors that the Rockets might have interest. A report later came out from Kelly Iko of The Athletic that the Rockets aren't interested. We know how this stuff works, but we didn't talk about Giannis to the Rockets specifically. He ended up asking an interesting question of, would you trade Cooper Flagg for Giannis Antetokounmpo? And the answer would vary by team, of course. We went through a bunch of different teams that could potentially end up with a lottery picker that we thought were not likely, but if we're not going to talk about the Boston Celtics having a lottery pick, for instance, they're not going to be included in this. And it ended up being an interesting exercise. I think you will enjoy the discussion. Very quickly before we get started, Grant and I are going to be doing a which NBA player would you rather have for the next 5 years podcast. We'd like to make that one of our mega episodes. We're going to be taking submissions, but to submit something, you need to join our Discord. The link to that is in the podcast and YouTube description as always. I'll be sending out the form maybe this coming weekend, definitely early next week, the week of Thanksgiving at the absolute latest, probably maybe around Sunday, Monday, feels about right. So you can go in there, have a bunch of conversations with people, a lot of good people in there. And I like to see the discussions going even when I don't have to be involved. That's kind of the entire point of the Discord. So if you haven't done so already, Discord's pretty cool. If you don't have it on your phone, download the app, check it out, and join ours. And that'll be a way for maybe your player combination. Would you rather have 19-year-old Jason Tatum for the next 5 years, or Victor Wembanyama, who's older than 19-year-old Jason Tatum, as just an example? You can try and get creative with them. We want realistic ones too, because I don't want to get to a point where I'm disincluding certain combinations because we've used the same player over and over again. So really think on it. But again, join our Discord, link that's the podcast and YouTube description. Appreciate all of your support as always. We love you around these parts, but that's enough out of me. Let's get to talking and asking an overarching question. And this will be time-stamped if you want to get through the initial Giannis news of it all. Which NBA teams would trade Cooper Flagg for Giannis Antetokounmpo?
All right, Dan, we have to get into some rumors because obviously the Milwaukee Bucks are, well, they're doing as well as one could imagine after you hire Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham to be on your bench, basically. Giannis, obviously, is the big one. Everyone is trying to trade him away, and the Rockets have expressed interest. So before we get into like the trade aspect of it all, and I've said this before, but I want to reiterate myself on this one. I think it'd be absolutely Looney Tunes to go in and make a Giannis trade before you make a change on the bench. Like, I fully recognize.
Again.
Right. Like, but it's still like, I fully recognize the problem at hand. I fully recognize there are very, very few ways for this Bucks team to even get better because of where they are salary wise, because of their assets, all of which are basically better for them playing instead of like as trade assets. But I would never be able to sell it to my fan base, sell it to my fans worldwide if I traded the best player I've ever had on my team before I fired Doc Rivers. It would feel dirty and it would feel wrong.
Yeah, but I'm of the mind you don't trade Giannis unless Giannis asks for out. And if because at that point, it's if Doc Rivers is still on the bench, you could say, well, if we fire Doc, would that change your mind? And he might just say no. So that is, it's Giannis. If I'm Milwaukee, I'm not trading Giannis unless Giannis wants it. But if you had to say, oh, are there any teams that could come in and make them think about going to Giannis and saying, hey, are you married to this situation? Like, are you, if there's any team that could make them be proactive, I would say it's Houston or it's Oklahoma City. And honestly, I think you can make a case for the Pelicans just because if you get control over not this season's, although this season's draft pick might matter, it's top 4 protect. Like New Orleans only gets it if it's in the top 4, I think. But like they can give you control back of your next 2 draft picks. Maybe you throw New Orleans in there, but just in a vacuum, the Rockets and the Thunder have enough stuff to come calling for the Bucks to think. But again, you have to compare that to the reality of this is the Nets with Mikal Bridges. The Knicks probably gave them enough to have them trade Mikal Bridges no matter what. But if they weren't already getting control of their next 2 first-round picks back from New York, from Houston, if that wasn't lined up, do they still make the Mikal Bridges trade? And so that's what's also difficult about this entire situation.
But even if Giannis comes in and says, I want to trade, the Bucks can also point to his contract and say, well, technically, we have you under contract for the next 2 seasons beyond this one. Like, if I'm the Bucks, I wouldn't be in a rush. Like, if Giannis calls for like a mid-season trade, I'm just selling him no. Straight up, because you can get more for someone like him during the course of summer than you can at a trade line deal.
Which, by the way, a Giannis trade, we don't get shocked much anymore in hashtag this league. If he was traded mid-season, I would be flabbergasted.
My God. Sure. Look, so every single year I do like this Danish stream of the trade deadline. Like we rent out an indoor basketball court, install cameras and whatnot. And over the past couple of years, we haven't really had like, a big ass trade where we can all just lose our shit. This would do it. Like if it came like an hour before
a top
deadline,
5 player being traded would be exciting.
Like,
that's shocking.
Especially like if it's an hour before deadline or a few minutes before the deadline. Like just make it exciting for me, NBA, as I'm watching that, as I'm covering that whole thing. But no, like I don't think they should be in a rush. Like obviously, if they do talk to Giannis and Giannis is just like, no, there's no way in hell I'm staying. I am out. I'm mentally done. I'm checked out. And there's just no way you can get out of it. It's so crucial to nail that trade in the summer. Like you cannot make, a Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey trade where you get something in return, but not enough. You have to maximize that value because you have no value elsewhere. I mean, look, let's be real here. What is a Chris Middleton going to give you on a trade market right now? Not a damn thing. He's unavailable. He hasn't played. Pat Connaughton, really? Bobby Portis? Like, there isn't that one guy out there that's going to give you an absolute ton of assets in return. Dame is on a deal that is very handsomely rewarded. Is he about to make that, small guard decline? It certainly feels like he's inching closer to it. Would I, as an opponent team, give up the farm for Damian Lillard, age 34, 35? I don't know. So that starts with that. Like if Giannis comes to him and it's game over, you have to absolutely nail that trade. And you set the name. That's Oklahoma.
You don't think it's Houston? With just
it's the draft picks, man. It's the draft picks and it's the young players because you have to ask for Jalen Williams in return. You need the blue chip prospect and you need all of the draft picks.
See, I would argue that Houston is better for Milwaukee. Now, whether Giannis is what Houston needs when you have Şengün and Amen Thompson's there, but if you're Milwaukee, you could get or ask. Like, I would argue this way. Like, there are maybe more poachable blue chip prospects in Houston than OKC at this moment because OKC is close to its final form and they're contending for a title. Whereas if you're Houston, you look at it and say, could you envision this? Like they would give up at least one of Amen, Jabari, or Reed Shepherd for Giannis.
Oh yeah. No, it's attractive, but is it attractive as Jalen Williams if you can get him?
That's interesting because the Bucks don't have their own picks. And so just Jalen Williams, you're worried about competing immediately. But that's also to me, so Jalen Williams is the best of any of the names we just mentioned.
Right.
Now, unless you're getting a Şengün in the offseason, which I don't think Houston would, I probably wouldn't listen to it just because he's so important for setting up everybody else. And that's not, Giannis can do it, but it's not the driving force of an entire offense. No. But Houston has we're talking about other money going out. If Milwaukee still wants to be better, like you have Brooks and you have Van Vliet. And it's probably, Van Vliet's making so much money, you'd almost not want it to be him because Milwaukee can only take back so much money. But you have Brooks. So you have another impact player there and it's okay. OKC has Lou Dort, but if you can get 2 of Houston's, would they give up 2 of Amen Thompson, Reed Shepherd, and Jabari for Giannis plus Brooks, and then you're filling out money elsewhere with other deals? Plus picks or whatever. Again, I don't know.
Yeah, then I agree. Then it stands. Then the contrast is starting to swing in favor of Houston.
But if it's OKC though, by the way, what is I don't even know what the complexion of that deal looks like because it's they may like, so I guess you have to trade Hartenstein in that scenario
Yeah,
because who's their big salary? Or is it like,
that
can you
would be
get there with
Hartenstein.
Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, and then I guess a handful of other smaller ones? Like, I guess that
Mhm.
makes it work plus all the picks.
No,
Mm,
Hardenstein for sure. But I mean, you can get away with that. I mean, you could get
I,
away with a Chet Giannis front line.
yeah, I think I would probably prefer. I love J Dub, but I would probably prefer what Houston could give me in the aggregate because they have
Oh,
a lot of good, like
interesting.
if they want to give those Suns picks up,
Right.
like that's super interesting. You really want a Galaxy brain this more. Is could either of these teams, in anticipation of this, go out and try and get those Bucks picks from from the Pelicans, and
God.
now you have those sitting in
Yeah.
the clip.
That'd be interesting. Just
Now,
give
if I'm the Pelicans, I probably don't want to do that because even if
right.
you trade like if you trade Giannis and you get J Dub or you get a collection of whatever Houston's offering, I mean, there's a chance the Bucks could still be bad. Like, what if Damian Lillard decides he wants out at that point or he falls off
Mhm.
a cliff?
And they
So
don't control their own pick. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, that might be it though. That might be what the Bucks could be telling teams. Like, find a way to get our picks back, then we'll talk.
which is then at that point though, like if you're New Orleans, why are you doing that? Because so New
Right.
Orleans gets because the other half of it, it's in Minnesota now, right? No, that's not Brooklyn has it if it's outside the top four, and then New Orleans gets it if it's inside the top four in 2025. And so if you're Milwaukee, there actually might be some value in getting like, okay, we could try and be bad enough to get it back like in 2000 and like get it back now. But you're looking at
Right.
New Orleans has the right to swap in 26, and then they also have the Bucks's 2027 pick outright to New Orleans as well. So like those are the two picks that are a big deal because we're assuming this trade isn't going to happen this season anyway. Now, if you want it to
Right.
happen midseason, I would still say, is there anything New Orleans could do to get the back end of like that Bucks protections back from Brooklyn, or is there like could another team get the whole like so? But that would be if that's what Milwaukee's telling people. I honestly think that's smart, by the way, by the Bucks front office. But that's what would make the offer truly interesting is if you could
Mhm.
take because New Orleans in a vacuum, like if they came calling with Zion and your draft picks back, do you think like do you think about it?
You think about it. Yeah, absolutely. You think about it. Even though I just wrote a long piece over at Yahoo about basically how difficult Zion is to build around. And I used Giannis as a kind of comparison point because at least Giannis, he's got the height, he's got the length, he's got the defensive capabilities, where Zion is a 6'6" power forward who really can't play center, who really can't play the three, who is very pigeonholed into a position. So are the Bucks aware of that, or are we just going to assume, well, the Bucks are smart enough to hire Doc Rivers, so they might see the value in bringing in
Well,
Zion?
could you also go the other route? Again, I don't know what this looks like, Giannis and Zion together, but it's going to be
Oh,
there'll be other money involved, but it's
yeah.
Brandon Ingram and your picks back. Maybe you're getting some New Orleans picks tacked on that too, in
God, I
addition to
hate
other
that
salary.
idea. I hate the Zion Giannis idea together.
Have you had enough shooting? I mean, look at who Zion's look.
No.
So Zion's played alongside Steven Adams, Jonas. If that's just your front court, you'll figure out what they made it work with Steven Adams and Jonas Valanciunas, just as like off rip, just to name the past like two primary Pelican centers. And yeah, those guys are good. They're not excellent complement. Is Giannis a worse complement to Zion than any of those guys? And I think you could
They'll have
argue
to
well, Jonas
average like
Valanciunas
80
had some
paint
stretch.
points.
What's that?
They'll have to average like 80 paint points.
Okay. If there's any two guys that could do it, it's those two. And Giannis, what is he shooting? Like 90% for mid range this year? So hashtag floor spacing.
Yeah. I mean, look, the cleaner fit, you brought him up, the Thunder as well. I mean, let's just be real about this. Even if somehow they finagle a trade without J-Dub, which would be amazing, I just don't see it. Shea, Chet, Giannis it's ridiculous. That's what it is. It's ridiculous. I don't see how that wouldn't be of interest to him.
Yeah. So the thing that I think OKC needs the most is a second primary shot creator. And there's a chance there's a chance it's healthy Chet. But like isn't there a better chance what they need in a playoff setting would be the player you want J-Dub to become rather than Giannis right now? Because he's not I know he's shooting well from mid-range this year, but like that is a very paint oriented shot creator. who's not going to create a ton of advantages. Like, yes, collapsing defense is the pass. Giannis is no worse than the third best player in basketball. I want to make that clear.
Right.
But
I love how you're breaking that down. Like, are we really sure that they'd be good with Giannis? I love that.
They'd be great, but do you think it's like, does it answer their defense is already no worse relative to the league average and the second best all time. So does it really, are they better? Probably, but I would still just wonder about the offense, especially look, Chet Holmgren's 3-point volume. So all of a sudden, I guess that when he's healthy has to come way up with Giannis because it wasn't super high to begin with. And so then you're also shrinking during the Giannis minutes, some of maybe the most intriguing, like independent elements of his game. You have to consider it. I want to make it clear, but it's sort of like, if you're OKC, I know this isn't the exercise you asked for. Is there like, could you give up enough to New Orleans to get at least those 2 Bucks pick back? Because New Orleans has the flexibility to make a Giannis trade without including any one of their top 3 players. OKC, excuse me.
Right.
So
New Orleans would have a lot of leverage there because they know what the end game is going to look like.
That's why, because they don't have Isaiah Joe would make a lot of sense in New Orleans, but it's like that plus picks. Is that going to get you a Bucks pick at this juncture? So that would be Case and Wallace could maybe be interesting, but
he would be interesting. Yeah, he would be interesting. He's good. He's really good.
Would you give up Alex Caruso and picks to get some Bucks picks back? But from New Orleans' perspective, now you're really doubling down on we are really galaxy brain this stuff.
All right.
Trade restriction lifts? Is there an Isaiah Hartenstein deal around that and picks that makes sense to get? Now you're getting off. We'll eat Brandon Ingram's money for the rest of this year, or we'll eat CJ McCollum.
Right.
And go that route to get those. That would be something to consider.
I mean, CJ is kind of like the guy. So before they signed Hartenstein during the summer, I mentioned Anthony Simons specifically. Because I do think they need another floor spacer. I think they need someone else to create from the perimeter and in. A McCollum would do the trick pretty nicely, I would argue, even if he's a salary inclusion.
Oh, which end of it are you talking about? The eventual deal with Milwaukee or with
no for OKC?
Look, I think CJ's super valuable when he's healthy to New Orleans because of the way he's brought up his 3-point volume the past couple of years. Have you seen? I know Mark Stein's a homie of yours, isn't he? But
no.
What did you make of the report that the Knicks traded in Karl-Anthony Towns in part to make them a more attractive Giannis destination as a package?
Well, with what money? I didn't see that. No.
You could figure it over the offseason. You could figure it out. My whole point is, if they were really thinking in those terms, why would you have given up that Bucks pick in the Bridges trade?
Right. No, I think we have to assume that the Bucks, if that trade request comes in from Giannis, we have to assume it's the big red reset button, right? I mean, we can't assume otherwise.
Yes, I think from our distant, callous perspective, if Giannis wants out, it's time to start over, especially if Brook Lopez is going to be a free agent. Chris Middleton might be a free agent. He has that player option. But when you don't have your own picks until when do they get back control of the rolling picks? 2030?
Yeah. And that's where I
owns that one. So that's where shit gets weird, is that you probably need I personally don't think in that market that if you trade Giannis and you're not getting any of your picks back, that they're going to be maybe they will. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that, it's reset central there.
All right. How about this then? They wait until the draft lottery, so they know who gets number 1. So at least they can start off with someone.
You're offering Giannis for Cooper Flagg?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Depending on who gets it, of course. If it's a rebuilding team, there's no reason.
Yeah, if the Nets get Cooper Flagg, they're not playing that game.
No, exactly. It has to be someone where that makes sense, where there's a salary structure in place, where you could see that trade sort of get developed.
What do you do? So what if New Orleans wins the lottery with Milwaukee's pick?
Oh boy,
that'd be fascinating.
But it's like one. Oh no. So how? Explain to me again. So it's 1-4 protected, right?
So if the Bucks pick ends up 1 through 4, the Pelicans get it. If it's 5,
it's the Pelicans.
30,
okay.
The Nets get it. So the Nets still get a pretty high pick out of this.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. God,
Well,
that's
so
funny.
I guess the better question would be, so what's a lottery team that you could see thinking in those terms? Like, we will give up the number 1, the number 2 pick, whatever. I don't know enough about this draft class other than people seem to think there are like
Okay.
3 to 5 cornerstones available at the top.
So there is a team that's currently in the lottery. I don't necessarily think they'll end up in, well, they might end up in the late lottery when they get healthy. The Raptors are actually pretty good when they have all their players. They just haven't had them this year. Like Emmanuel Quickly's been in and out of the lineup. RJ Barrett started the season injured. Scotty Barnes has been in and out of the lineup. Like they haven't had everyone together. Like I would be pretty intrigued to see where they land on such a deal if they win the lot. But again, they just gave up big deals to both Quickly and Barnes. Maybe they'll just say, "Hey, look, Cooper Flagg on a cost-controlled asset for 4 years with this team. Look, maybe we'll run with that instead."
By the way, that's also what makes it tough. Is like, so you have to make the money work in almost all of these cases. It has to be Cooper Flagg plus stuff.
Yeah.
The Spurs, because they have a ton of salary flexibility.
See, I was hoping you'd bring up them because imagine this. You have Wemby and Cooper Flagg. Are you giving that up?
They as an organization would not. I do think there are a lot of other teams, if they were in the same situation, would.
But the Spurs shouldn't. I would go on record and saying the Spurs shouldn't. Because that is building a window that is supposedly sustainable for a lot of years. Their defense would be right off the bat.
With Steph Castle there, my God.
Yeah. Side note, watched a lot of Spurs this year. No one's talking about this guy. What the hell, man? He's so good. I tweeted
about him on Sunday. You didn't see that?
I didn't see you skeeted. No, I didn't see it.
Shooting like 48% on 3, and I think some people gave me pushback at the beginning of the season based off some of his misses. I know some people think his shot is slower and lower, so they have him spacing out from long distances to give him more time to load up.
Right.
He's hitting them now. I thought some of his misses were like, well, just bring him in a couple feet. But like, he's hitting 26 and 27 footers over the last 5 or 6 games. And if he's hitting those, whether it's the slow dribble pull-ups or off the catch, like that changes the complexion of their entire future. Just you want Wemby. I don't want to see Wemby in the post. Everyone shut the fuck up about that. I've too much of let's get Wemby in the post. Yeah, you want him going downhill or like as a play finisher at the rim. Yep. Open up the floor. Steph Castle is currently doing that. And the fact that he's kind of learning under the tutelage of CP3, there's a chance that he just ends up being a basketball psychopath. And like, if we all of a sudden see him punishing mismatches into these mid-range pull-ups, that'll be terrifying. I was not high on him. And by the way, I'm still skeptical of the jump shot. But if like this guy has an operable, I'm not saying 47% from 27 feet and out, but if he has an operable jump shot, holy hell.
My son and I watched him live in LA a couple weeks ago, and he had this one move. It was the most subtle, straightforward thing. Like no one would ever pick it up on television as being a fantastic thing. He got a high pick, I think. I don't remember if it was Zach Collins or Wemby setting the screen, and he took this wide step and then dribbled into a very simple midi pull up. But the separation he was able to gain off that one power dribble and his feet placement, I was like, that's clean. Like there's no wasted motion. There's that isn't a rookie move. That's not a rookie shot. That's not a rookie foot placement. Everything was completely under control. And even my son looked at me and went, that was smooth. And I was like, yeah, you're right, kiddo. It really was. I mean, it's the smaller things, but he just looks so damn polished. And then when you go to his profile and you watch the shooting percentages, everyone kind of loses their minds, but the process is extremely encouraging.
There's a poise there for sure. Yeah. Right. I have a couple other teams for the Giannis if they won the lottery. This one I feel like is pretty easy because they also don't own their own pick. So you would have to, but Atlanta, you have to, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Here's one that I think is interesting, but I'm curious if it's just a me thing that's interesting. Charlotte.
Oh, Charlotte would be in. They need an established superstar at this point. They need someone who is they would go for it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also think they would go for it in part because I think LaMelo Ball is a transcendent player that people still don't appreciate. Now, does he suck? Apparently. Yeah, apparently he sucks. But that would be if you have Brandon Miller and LaMelo on the basketball court with Giannis.
Yeah.
That like a year 3 Brandon Miller with Giannis and LaMelo. That's a really good team.
It's fun. At least it would be fun. And, Giannis would have to demand a trade by probably the 50-game mark because LaMelo won't give him the ball. He'll just be busy taking those 29.
I disagree. I disagree. LaMelo's team is missing shots, man. That's why another team that might be interesting, Detroit.
Oh, yeah, they're ready. They're ready. They're absolutely ready. Yeah. And of course, we don't even have to ask about the Bulls.
Baked in. You don't think the new regime change with Trajan Langdon? Did you see the joke where it was Troy Weaver's probably looking at the way that Duran and Ivy are playing and just like, and Cade and just like, what is going on here? So it was like Trajan Langdon surrounded them with actual spacing, like Troy Weaver never did.
But that's actually the thing. I thought they kind of accelerated a little bit this year, and I think they would like to have someone in there who they know who are. So that's the underplay thing, right? Cooper Flagg, despite the fact that he looks amazing, despite the fact that he's beasting in college, you never know. Like, that's the thing about the draft. You never know, right? Remember how Markelle Fultz was a can't-miss prospect? He was Dwayne Wade with a three-point shot. That was the word on him. He was supposed to be this transcendent superstar point guard. He's out of the league right now. So we never really know. So for a team like them, would they not look at Giannis and go, here's a guy who's won multiple MVPs. Here's a guy who's won a championship. We know we can circle him in for 30-plus points, 12-plus rebounds, 5-plus assists, and strong-ass defense. We know that he'll lift our transition games to a new level. Whereas with Cooper Flagg, you roll the dice on something that you just don't know what is. I think Detroit, after the couple seasons that they've had, would lean towards the known commodity. But that's just my take.
So let's go through the other candidates quickly. We already did New Orleans. We did San Antonio. We did Charlotte. Washington is probably a no, right?
Oh, yeah, that's Flagg. They're leaning into the youth movement.
We already said Brooklyn wouldn't.
Right.
We said Atlanta would. Charlotte would. I mean, every team in the East could be a lottery team. We said the Pistons, they're currently 5th.
Right. The Bulls would too, obviously.
The Bulls would, they would. Oh, Miami. They probably shouldn't. I would say if you win the number 1 pick, burn the whole, you keep Bam. Probably keep Tyler Hero at this point. He's fairly young. Trade Jimmy Butler. Like, just rebuild around Cooper Flagg, Jaime, Bam, and Hero. But do you think they'd go the Giannis route?
It's Miami. And look, Miami low-key is one of those teams that always covers a star. They're basically Lakers East when it comes to like their mentality. They always want a star. They are very horny for stars. I think they're waiting for Giannis to kind of like put him on the list, right? I mean,
yeah. I wouldn't. But you're saying they would, and
I'm saying they would. I agree with your logic here. I think with Miami, it's kind of time to retool a little bit. So a Cooper Flagg situation would look pretty attractive as far as I'm concerned. There is one team in the lottery we haven't talked about yet.
Well, I was going to say Cooper Flagg and Paul George for Giannis.
Oh, that's I thought we were talking about Dallas.
Kind of the same situation though, right? Because for Dallas, it would be, you have to give up players who are good to make the money work, but they would have to. It would be
Luka Giannis. I don't care who they gave up. Look, you gotta pair Luka and Giannis if you have the chance. Just for my sake, just for the sake of Europe, you have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess you get there with the money, step out of your way with Maxi Kleber, PJ Watt, because you're probably trying to keep Kyrie and Derek Lively as part of that, right?
Right. You would almost have to, yes. But even if you had to give up Kyrie, I would do it.
Honestly, though, I've said this many times, and maybe I need to get past it. I'm just not even a little bit concerned about Dallas right now. The crunch time stuff is weird, but I think guys are going to hit threes. Hopefully, Luka gets it. If Luka's not healthy, then we need to have a different conversation. But they would do it for sure. Philly is doing Paul George and Cooper Flagg for Giannis, right? Because that's what it would have to be.
Look, it's Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey is not even shy about admitting his love for stars.
Well, do you know what the actual trade should be, if we're being really honest?
Mm-hmm.
Probably should be like Cooper Flagg and Joel Embiid for.
Yeah. I know where you're going, and I don't disagree. That is not trending the right way currently.
No, Joel Embiid is so dominant. It's just we have to have the conversation. We have the same conversation about Zion. Right. He's in that. It's just he's won an MVP and he's been more dominant at full strength than them. What other team? Oh, what about Indiana?
What about Utah though?
Utah's a no.
No, see, that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. But like that's a team that still seems stuck and not knowing what the hell they want to do.
First of all, Danny Ainge, if he gets his hand on a number 1 pick who is Caucasian, is not trading him. So that's not happening.
No. He's trading it for number 3 and getting the better player.
But Utah, I think they would fire Will Hardy, I think, before they would trade Cooper Flagg for Giannis.
That might be true.
They fire Will Hardy for winning too many damn games before they would trade.
No, but it's just like my point about Utah is basically I don't know where the hell they're leaning. They're all over the place. I have no idea what their plan is.
They're leaning very clearly one direction. Will Hardy won't let it stand. That like this team is just like putting together some good offensive performances. I think they'll ultimately be bad enough this year. They have the worst record in the West. So
but like Lauri Markkanen extension, I'm just trying to understand where he fits in because
I'm sorry, that was asset preservation at its finest. Like first of all, Lauri Markkanen and Giannis would be a fantastic duo, but you wouldn't have a primary shot creator like there.
No, they wouldn't. And I understand the asset preservation part, but then I have to wonder why didn't they flip Lowry earlier when his trade value was enormous because of the low salary. That's what like after year 1, for example, year 1, they should have.
Sure. That's a different conversation, but even then it's like, I think he's more valuable on his current deal because he's on it for so long.
Yeah. I can get behind that. To an extent, because I'm not sure if he is a real max guy considering the need for him being set up. But you're right. That's a different conversation for a different day. You brought up the Pacers. The Pacers is pretty simple, right? You have Tyrese Halliburton. If he, returns to Tyrese Halliburton standards, which he hasn't this year, because I assume it's still the lingering injury.
So apparently he's dealing with back stuff versus hamstring stuff.
Right.
What's interesting about them though is like, okay, so Turner's coming off the books after this year. So are you trading Siakam with them? Like, can the money work with, I guess Nembhard will be on his deal. You could probably step ladder your way there. You'd probably have to give up Nembhard. Neesmith is in there. Benedict Mather and Jarrett Walker make some money. TJ McConnell makes some, but they don't have like a huge salary anchor. Nembhard becomes their biggest. Obi Toppin, I forgot. So Nembhard, Toppin, salary, and Cooper Flagg. You probably have to do it, right?
Yeah, it has to be a great deal of contracts going on, but they don't have that one, the Isaiah Hartenstein contract that they can just plug into it.
They don't have that. Well, the Nets won't have that Ben Simmons contract either.
Right.
What about the Blazers? You talk about a team that might be all over the place.
Yeah.
I guess at that point, it's because their contracts, no one's super expensive on that team aside from Jeremy Grant. And
they don't have their number 1 guy, right? Like that team has still, like still don't really know what Scoot Henderson is.
Their defense though with Sharp, Giannis, and Klingon, and then if you keep Tamani Kamara and Denny Avdia would be filthy. I don't know what the offense looks like, but
and that's why I think they go Giannis, because if you're looking over that roster right now, who is their clear-cut number 1 guy going into the future?
So if you get Flagg, do you then look at maybe moving Scoot? Where it's like, no, you're not getting Giannis in that scenario, but is there someone else where, like, would you go to Utah and be like, you want Scoot? We'll talk Lowry.
See, I hear what you're saying, but I'm wondering what type of value does Scoot have right now?
There's so I do think that Scoot has looked better this year.
He has
towards the end of last year. So I do think that he would have, for teams that are rebuilding and not in a rush, I think he would have a ton of. I think his mystique after this year,
right?
If he stays the same player he is right now, I think it winds up still being pretty high.
Interesting. I don't know if I'm there, but I can see like where you're coming from with it. I would be worried if I'm a team out there and I'm looking over the options and I know the price tag of Scoot Henderson would be significant. And I'm looking at his production and I'm looking at how he relies on this athleticism to the point that he is. I don't know, man. I probably wouldn't do it.
He doesn't rely on like his athleticism enough, or at least we haven't seen it. And maybe that's the like what he was supposed to be. And I don't know how much of that is last year. He's dealing with that ankle injury stuff to start the year. But like,
right. What my point is, he doesn't have like a foundation to fall back on. Really. He's still very much a theoretical player.
Right. And if you're looking at him shooting, what is he at, like 51% inside 5 feet this year? Like, yeah, that's a problem for someone.
Right.
But also, I just wonder if the spacing was a little bit better around him, because they're still not, their best lineups don't even have a ton of spacing in it, which is why Denny Avdija has been all over the place this year too.
But I think my overarching point about this is you don't really have a clear number one guy for the future in Portland. So you can't justify saying, no to a Giannis or a Cooper Flagg, regardless of,
Well, yeah, but that's I would argue, though, that's why maybe they would be more likely to keep Cooper Flagg, though.
Yeah, so you kind of say this is our guy. But then what if he doesn't turn into that guy and you had Giannis on the table? Then what?
Well, I mean, hindsight becomes whatever, but I just
right. But
it's different though, because okay, if they don't get Giannis and Cooper Flagg doesn't pan out, are people really going to question that? Because they're a team that would be bad enough to get.
Have you met NBA fans, Dan?
But if you put Giannis on the Blazers instead, so it's Cooper Flagg and let's just use Jeremy Grant. Is it Jeremy Grant or Anthony Simons is the most important player that's going out?
You got to keep Simons for the shooting.
Yeah.
It's Jeremy Grant and someone else. Yes.
And Cooper Flagg. I think that would get you close there, and then you could figure out the rest of the salary. Or is it honestly, no, it should be Cooper Flagg and DeAndre Ayton.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, that's the deal. You're keeping Jeremy Grant, Shaedon Sharpe. If Giannis is on that team, how close are they to title contention?
Well, you would have to follow up, because even you say don't trade Jeremy Grant in this particular deal, I would then flip Grant for someone else. I mean, look,
I get what you're saying. Giannis would afford you more optionality.
Right.
Okay. I still think they would
keep the shooters, though. See, the thing is, the Milwaukee's ultimate problem. See, we forgot about the Milwaukee equation of all this. Milwaukee's problem for years and years and years were that they never got younger. They never got a young asset base up around Giannis. All their other guys are older than him, primarily. I mean, Dane, Chris Middleton, those guys, Brook Lopez. And I personally, I've been ranting about this for years. I think if you want to maintain a competitive window for longer, your top tier superstar also needs to be one of your oldest guys. Because if you are in the late 20s, start 30s, but all the guys that you played with for years and years and years are suddenly in the mid 30s, and they're basically on their way out of the league because of where they are, then it gets extremely difficult to kind of replenish that depth to get younger. Here, going into an Anthony Simons, Denny Avdija situation, Shaedon Sharpe situation, Donovan Clingan situation, that's going to be interesting. Giannis is going to have young legs for weeks now.
But here's the thing, though. This is also then a LeBron to LA situation where how long until he gets frustrated? LeBron also had Cleveland trade some of the kids when he got there. Andrew Wiggins was gone, never been played for him. So how is that going to fly? So also, if you're Joe Cronin, I think it's easier it also buys you more job stability to say, well, we have the number one pick. This is going to take more time than if we get Giannis in. There's an inherent pressure there. That's also why I don't think that they would do it. And if it's Giannis, you better have the next trade lined up, because then who is that? And then that's even going to increase the urgency then.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. Absolutely. 100%. You have, and I think that would be part of it, right? I don't think you line up a Giannis trade unless you have other deals ready to go. I can't, regardless of which team we're talking about. There's no team outside of the Thunder, more or less, where you just kind of slide Giannis in there and don't really worry about the rest of the roster.
I was going to bring up very quickly, but I forgot. This would really, this would be hysterical if the Clippers won the lottery, which would mean that OKC won the lottery, correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yes.
So they have their choice of the litter basically between Houston and the Clippers. So if the Clippers won the lottery, it does not look like they're going to be bad enough, and we know they don't have the incentive, but if they just organically finish in the lottery and OKC ends up with Cooper Flagg, what does OKC do at that point? Do you trade? Does OKC trade Cooper Flagg? You have to, right? For Giannis?
Oh, yeah. For Giannis, yes, because you want to. No, I don't want to say, I never want to say guaranteed title, but that is as close as you're going to get to a guaranteed title.
Well, okay. Would they? We say they should. Would they?
That's a good question.
Look, from their perspective,
cost control,
because then you still have J-Dub and Chet.
You do, yeah.
And you have to worry about paying them. Giannis is on his big deal.
Yeah.
Shea's going to get more expensive.
Now, let's just roll out the lineup first. It's Chet, then it's Flagg, it's J-Dub, it's Shea, And then who cares about the fifth starter, really?
I mean, Lou Dort fits into there. Aaron Wiggins fits into there. Alex Caruso.
I would honestly want like a clean shooter. Yeah, like right in
Isaiah Joe. Throw maybe Casey
Isaiah Joe. Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't even care about the size disadvantage. He fights well.
I mean, at that point, just go out there and trade for get like a Duncan Robinson type and slot him.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like a guy who's just a straight up shooter.
Well, yeah, but you're talking about their lineup, but you just said they should trade for Giannis.
No. I was just piggybacking off of you, like imagining if they just kept Flagg. Because I agree with you. If they keep Flagg, then they'll also not have to give up J-Dub.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you're not giving up Flagg and J-Dub for Giannis. They're not doing that.
You would still have Hartenstein, who you could flip for more assets down the line.
If you what? What are you talking about?
If they won the lottery via the Clippers.
Right. So my point is, I would still trade for Giannis. I would go hard.
I said I would too, but now we're backing off the other one. Like, would they? Like, really?
I don't think they would. So I think they should. I don't think they would is where I land, I guess. Was my point.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I was just trying to like follow Sam Presti's line of thought here. Like, what would that roster look like if they kept Cooper Flagg? Because it does give him some optionality that he may not have had before.
So Minnesota, if they win the lottery, that's going to go to Utah. So that don't matter. Right. Memphis, I wouldn't like. That's interesting.
That's not old, right? That is theirs. They own that.
Yeah, they have all their own picks, I believe.
I mean, yeah, right. You got to go Flagg, I think.
No, the youth movement there. You're saying you're keeping Flagg if you're Memphis?
I think so. Just because of the youth, if you want to build that. Or maybe, like, here's the thing, though. I feel like Memphis is several moves away from, like, being that team that we all hope them to be one day.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Giannis, Triple J, Desmond Bane, and John Morant doesn't make them that team that you're trying to make.
No, that's a fair point. Because
they can step ladder you make Milwaukee figure it out over the offseason with their roster stuff. If I'm Memphis, I'm 100% doing it.
Right. And also because here's the thing. You're right. Memphis also has the benefit of youth. So for Giannis to come into that lineup, he can sort of lean into the youthfulness of it all. Like JJJ is still young. Ja obviously still young. Desmond Bane is only like, 26, I want to say, something along those lines. Even Salty Aldama, for example, is only, 20, 23?
He's a siren song of mine. I'm happy
he's so good. How valuable I don't understand why he's not talked about. He should be on the radar for so many more teams, but that's again a different story.
He leads them in minutes per game at this point, so they're not going to trade him.
No. But like generally speaking, down the line, I hear you because they will have another move needed. I feel like there's something missing.
So now we're getting into some of the long shots, but like the West is just so lumped together. Like we're talking about if you finish 7th. There's a chance you end up in the lottery. So like, that's why I'm going through this exercise. This is a team I think we could easily envision, but the Lakers, you would just trade. You'd figure out a way to trade for Giannis, correct?
It's the Lakers. Yeah. It's the Miami.
The right answer is to go the opposite direction.
Of course it is, but it's the Lakers. I don't anticipate them making the right call.
That's also fair. That's a front. Yeah. Here's the interesting one. Again, I'm talking about because if they finish 7th, I don't know if you heard that. All my things are crashing, but we have to talk about this. If they finish 7th, there's a chance they end up being. I'm not going to predict it. If you're Denver, are you going Flagg or Giannis?
Giannis, obviously.
Are you?
Yes. Dude,
him and Jokic will be. But like, what is the outgoing trade? Like who? So who is the
MPJ?
Here's a more uncomfortable question. Who would you rather have as the primary form of money outgoing? Would you rather it be Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., or Jamal Murray?
MPJ at this point. Like, so here's the thing.
So we just don't give a shit about shooting.
About spacing. And no, again, because you can make additional moves. But here's the thing, though. I think the collective IQ of Giannis and Jokic on the court together.
And Gordon. Talking about
and Gordon, who is like the bully ball version of as well. I think it kind of overwrites that.
You're also as valuable as MPJ is to them. And I know people are upset with Jamal Murray at the moment. His contract of all the ones they have is the one that's most likely, aside from Zeke Naji, of course, who you definitely send out in that deal.
Right.
His is the contract that's probably most likely to be viewed as underwater, right? Even more so than Murray's.
3 back surgeries, man. Like, I know he played, was it 81 games last year? And that's commendable. And I hope for his sake, he continues that pattern. But if I'm sitting there as an NBA organization, I know I have a way to get Giannis. I know I have a guy who's had 3 back surgeries and I have an option to get out of it. Yeah, I'm doing that. And if it costs me Cooper Flagg, then I can still trot out Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I think that we covered everybody that could maybe feasibly be involved in that one, right?
I think we did. But look, you just indulged me in 2 of my favorite destinations, Dallas and Denver, because that is the big allure over here, or like overseas. That is getting, 2 of those 3 European superstars on the same team.
Well, if Giannis becomes available, Dallas, I think, would have the better, forget about the number 1 pick. I think Dallas would have the better package because Denver can only trade 1 first-round pick. 2031.
Denver does not have a lot of flexibility.
You would need the Bucks to be in love with
Christian
Brown, Peyton Watson, Julian Strother,
Deron Holmes, who hasn't played, which is that's a big ass loss, by the way. I really liked him. I thought he was playing this year.
Unless he's going to pull a Derek Lively and make an impact on a contender as a rookie, I think they were just looking at the gravity of the Denver's backup big situation. There was nothing. I don't think there was anything there as a rookie with him. But
interesting.
I hope he gets well, obviously. I mean, just in terms of the Nuggets, I don't think he would have come in and been a needle mover for them.
Right.
But Dallas, like if you start to talk, okay, they could trade up to 2 first-round picks, I think. And then
you'd have to give up Lively. You would have to give up Lively.
At that point, it's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know how you flesh out the rest of that deal though, because they're probably gonna, I would assume the Bucks would then insist on, do you want PJ Washington or Kyrie if you're them? Probably PJ.
Right.
Neither of those teams are winning the Giannis sweepstakes without the number 1 pick, so it doesn't matter. We don't need to get into it.
No. Well, we were talking about we were setting the number 1 pick aside. Like just who of the
Well, I guess Dallas would still have the better chance just because when you look at the opening of, like, now we get into 2032 draft pick territory when we're talking about next offseason. And so Dallas owns their pick this year, I believe. Yes. And then they have 27 going to Charlotte, very loosely protected. And then they have their 2029 first is outgoing. So they have, like, there's stuff that you could do with swaps with you get into 2031, 2032 of it all. They would, I think, have the better chance independent of winning Cooper Flagg.
I agree. And also, let's be real. That would be a more fun pairing. Like, I'm not saying Jokic, Giannis wouldn't be fun.
No, it would not. Get out of here.
Oh, look. Having a perimeter player and having a big man, which
I don't know.
That is a fun. No, I'm not saying that Jokic Giannis wouldn't be fun. You know that that's not what I'm saying.
I'm viewing it purely from, I'm thinking even like not even functional, but an aesthetic perspective.
Right.
Maybe I'm thinking about it because Jokic Giannis aesthetically would be more entertaining. But if you're talking about
prime Luka, I mean, that would be fun.
God, I'd love to see it.
Healthy Luka is probably the better wording. Healthy Luka.
Yeah, but could you just imagine like Giannis screening for Jokic? But I get honestly the way the Mavs run their offense around Luka, Giannis is more of an intuitive fit than the way Denver runs their offense around Jokic, probably, right?
I would argue.
Because you could figure out a way to use Giannis in the vein of you're using these other complementary players, but like it's not, let's have Jokic run a bunch of pick and rolls with Giannis as the screener, which is like if you're doing the Dame Giannis analog, like that's the 2-man game that you're looking for the most part.
There's a lot of upside to that team for both teams, really.
Would Giannis and Jokic be good? Let us know in the
No, I can tell you though, the big wet dream is getting all 3 of them together eventually.
On an all-star team. That's never that's not happening anywhere near this.
And that's I've been saying that as well, but it's a question I get at least 20 times every single summer. Like,
if you're Giannis, you prefer to play with Luka because there is a non-zero chance that Jokic just decides to retire on a whim and race horses. That's not an insult. Kudos to him.
That's not even look. That's honestly a real thing. Yes,
it's a non-zero chance. You can't.
Yep. And also, I think his role is more streamlined in Dallas. Like you could see him kind of be a little bit diminished in Denver. Like Jokic would grab rebounds out of his area. Like his numbers would go down. In Dallas, he likes scoring. Remember, like when he had the 59, like he wants to have 60. Like he said that. Like he likes to have the 60-point games. He likes to have the big numbers. Like Giannis is a little bit of a stat whore.
Giannis Jokic would be, maybe this is stupid to say, that would be the most unique star pairing in NBA history, right?
Yeah, I would.
Just because they're both one of one. So yeah, that was a dumbass thing, Dan. This is look, we've come full circle as we're supposed to. You introduced me and set the expectations high, and I just came in with the hottest take of all.
You did. It was fantastic.
It's a pretty unique star pairing if it ever happens.
By the way, I'll close on this one though, because there's no way we have times for bigger surprises now. We're an hour and 25 minutes into this podcast and 2 subjects down. 2026, right? That was supposed to be the big year for us Europeans, because a couple of years ago, we had no idea where Dallas were going. Like we weren't sure what their direction was. Then they made the finals. Everything seemed a little bit more solidified, but we're circling that 2026 year as, oh, that's when Luka can leave. And oh, by that point, Wemby's probably looking really good. That would have been fun. That is off the table now. So yeah, another tough blow to my fellow Euros.
Well, I apologies to you. Condolences to all of you guys.
I know,
but
it's really rough.
Kudos to Dallas for figuring it out.
Right? Yeah,
although people would argue they still haven't figured it out, which I guess is fair. But as I said, you come talk to me game number 25 if you want me to be concerned about that. I'm probably overcompensating for being too hard on them at last year's trade. I skewered the PJ Washington. I absolutely destroyed it. And I will say though, anyone who watched PJ Washington in Charlotte, the stuff he's done defensively in Dallas, it's exceeded anything he ever did in Charlotte. So
right, I was along with you. I still think they gave up a ton for Gafford and Washington.
Look, you made it to the finals. They don't have to apologize.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, it was the right call. I definitely hesitated as well when they did it. I didn't love it. They proved my ass wrong. And if there's a player in Jaden Hardy as well who takes a leap at some point, this team could be good. I am no longer a Dallas skeptic, regardless of how it's gone over the first 13, 14 games. I'm not really sure how many games they played around that area. Dan Favale, thank you so much for joining the pod. We only got to do 2 topics, but at least we went long on it. So before you leave,
we covered like the entire league on that last topic, though.
We did, and that is our MO. That is generally our MO. Let the good listeners know where they can find your work, sir.
Go check me out on the social media machines, plural. I'm at Dan Favale everywhere, basically at DanFavale. And more importantly, if you haven't checked out the Hardwood Knocks podcast, we have a lot of fun over there. Come join our Discord. The link to that will be in my podcast and YouTube description if you Google Hardwood Knocks. But I would argue, I'd be curious if there are people who listen to, well, you have the Danish community. So yeah, if you haven't checked out Hardwood Knocks, I imagine there's a lot of, in the United States, crossover between my pod and your pod, because you do a fantastic job. So anyone who wants to consume league-wide coverage in the USA probably listens to you. But if you don't, go check out Hardwood Knocks. My co-host and I have a lot of fun. You're not going to agree with everything we say. We're wrong all the time, but we do try to cop to it. So, but we have a lot of fun over there. So come check us out.
Love it. And we'll actually be back again for the next episode where you and I will actually have a little bit of a uniform breakdown.
Oh, it's let's just call it, we're grading the atrocity that is the NBA City Edition jerseys.
I wanted to be polite about it, but fair enough. All right. Thank you so much for listening in, you guys. And until we speak again, have a good one.